Bonjour, j'ai le plaisir d'accueillir Olena Kushakovska. Pardonnez-moi, je l'ai fait mieux tout à l'heure, mais là nous sommes en direct, pardonnez-moi. Merci Olena d'être avec nous. Vous êtes manager général de SAP Labs France et nous allons donc durant ces 20-25 minutes, prenez votre temps, parler des trois tendances importantes pour amener donc l'intelligence artificielle dans chaque entreprise. On vous écoute Olena.
Merci beaucoup pour l'introduction. I will change to English because it's easier for me, SAP being an international company. Thank you very much everybody for coming to hear me today, and thank you for those online who have logged in. So I will talk to you today about latest trends in AI and business and why it's important for you to invest in AI and business if you haven't done so yet, and why and what you need to do to actually make it a success. So this year, you probably all know the recent AI index report, which was published by Stanford University Human Centered Artificial Intelligence Institute, has highlighted the doubling of private investment into AI. And the 3/4 of those investments are coming from Europe, China, and US. So the global spending on AI wasn't supposed to get to this level until 2024, but it's still is forecasted to even double until 2024, even more. So, and the revenue which companies are forecasted to get in 2024 from AI are projected to be about $500 million. What is also important that actually not all the companies keep getting their investment money from AI. From 2015, the number of companies which got the investment from AI is actually dropped. So much more money is going to much less companies in much less startups. So not surprisingly, during the COVID phase, the most of investment got into the drug development and pharmaceutical companies, with automotive autonomous vehicle getting the second biggest investment, and then the educational applications, because AI is a hot topic in universities and for those who want to reclassify themselves. So in general, the AI projects continue to accelerate in healthcare, in bioscience, in manufacturing, in financial services, and in supply chain, while the retail, consumer products, the automotive, those who invested in these topics early, they actually the ones who are getting the biggest percentage of AI projects being in productive successfully. What is also important, the growing percentage of the PhDs are getting employed by the industry instead of going to the government or to the science. And the industry is starting to publish a growing number of peer-reviewed papers in their most important conferences in journals. So United States and China, who were projected to be the leaders in AI, are still remaining the leaders in AI. And what is most important also, that despite the geopolitical situations, they are collaborating on the research level a lot and are the biggest contributors in the research papers. Second being China and UK. And as you see, the Europe is coming together in collaboration only in the third place. So in addition, the market research by MIT shows that in Asia-Pacific region, their companies are actually going faster in AI and better in adopting an AI. The number of AI patents is also growing, so it's jumped to almost 30 times higher than it was in 2015. So what we see is that the AI is actually gaining momentum much faster than it was ever predicted and anticipated by the most analysts. So in the times of the COVID, and most importantly, despite the financial squeeze which was put on companies by COVID, more companies invested into AI, continued to invest into AI, and got their benefits from the AI. So about 48% of all the CIOs in the Gartner 2022 survey actually said that they will invest into the AI even more this year and definitely go productive with AI within the next year. So while we see the rapid growth of AI everywhere, very little organization can be named as fully AI-driven. And except maybe the biggest tech firms which are really building their business models on the AI. So what are the those trends which you can use in your business to actually jump on AI train if you haven't done so? What is right now so positive in the AI world which can help you to start your business in AI in a much better shape than a few years ago? So first of them is what is so-called foundation models. It means that the models which were trained by the large organization, technical organization, on the very big and broad set of data. And these huge models can afterwards be adapted to the downstream task and various downstream tasks. So it's a concept which was already known quite a lot in the transfer learning, and right now it's gaining a much wider adoption in the business. And this is something which people like David Talbot, who is the former machine translation lead at Google, always said, that this is something which once you train the big model, you can adapt it to other languages. So now with models like BERT or GPT, we have reached finally those humongous foundation model in the natural language processing. And when we adapt them to their customer-specific data, when we adapt them to their specific business knowledge, in this case, in translation case, it's to linguistic, we can easily obtain models which translate not only from English to another, but from other languages also. So the barrier to actually create a model which is suited to the specific business from foundation model is less. What you need to keep in mind that with foundation models, the hugely trained models, you also amplify the bias which eventually this model can have. And it's also proved that the bigger model they are, the bigger biases they actually learn. So you have to be careful when you do it, but it somehow still reduces your entry barrier to enter the market. So given this potential, the foundation models can drive this paradigm shift in your business where you don't have to train the model yourself, where you can take the model and just fine-tune it. So especially this is true because the training costs and the time which it takes to retrain the model are dropping down significantly. For example, for their image classification models, for the past 3 years, their costs were 60% less and training time actually 90% less. So if you want to fine-tune the model, you are much faster and it's much cheaper for you. And it's not only for image classification, it's also for lots of different tasks as image recognition, object detection, and language processing. So naturally, the second trend is actually data, and again, data. We talk about a lot of big data which needs for machine learning, but it's not always something which is possible in the industry. While still top results across the technical benchmarks for 9 out of 10 models achieved by training on the huge data and training them on bigger and more data. And in the last century, we really focused a lot on a lot of data, and there is some progress still to be made on it and achieved on it. There is a shift within an industry to something which we call data-centered AI, where you actually have to engineer your data for your model to be more precise. Why it's important? Imagine that you want to train the model for an anomaly recognition. You might have a foundation model which does image recognition, and then you need model, maybe somebody needs it for production of pills in a pharmacy, somebody needs it for recognition of anomaly in welding, and somebody else in recognition of production of Coca-Cola cans. So all these 3 models will be still different, and probably you don't have hundreds of images or thousands of images of different defects. If you have thousands of different defects and different images of those defects, and your problem is not AI, your problem is quality of production. So you don't have too much images, your images might not be the best quality or best representative of your defects, and you still should be able to train your model. So you are becoming concentrated, you're taking a foundation model and then concentrated on your data. So it's not more data, it's a good data and it's better data. So your task is becoming engineering of the data to make sure that you can fine-tune the model for the defect recognition or anomaly detection which you already have. So what you need to do, In this case, if you want to really jump into practical application of AI use cases, is focusing to this shift to the data first, where you have data-centric architecture, you remove the silos of data, you keep control of your data assets and their quality and their security, and you establish decentralized but really unified analysis of those data. It does take a lot of planning and implementation to create a data estate which is capable to withhold a proper ML and a proper AI and mature data science work. And about 80% of companies find out that 80% of their data are unstructured as a surprise. And in addition, about 80% of companies, when they implement ML use cases, run into last mile problems because of their data. Not because of the training, not because of the costs, not because of engineering, but because really of their data. So what you need to do is to engineer your data that they're consistently and accurately labeled, and it's not only your problem. The biggest data set like MNIST or ImageNet, they have still in those hundreds of data which are used by everybody badly labeled data or not clean data. Your data have to be representative and high quality, and you also need to take into account what's going to happen after your deployment of your model with the concept of the data drift. And the third trend, which I want to also highlight, is actually 5, 6, 7G, however, whatever G you want to jump on. The 5G is going to be a game changer also for AI, because it enables increased bandwidth with more connectivity and a better reliability in the possibility, so gives the possibility of the massive machine-to-machine communication, massive broadband communication, and really it will assure the critical communication between machines. So the low cost, the higher performance of edge hardware enables connecting and collecting data and moving the processing to the edge where the data actually are collected and sitting. And you can even think about implementing a completely new use cases. For example, already in 2018, a group of researchers from UCLA were able to 3D print a neural network. So this neural network was working with the light, not with electricity, like a normal neural network will work on the computer, which means that the neural network didn't even need a power source. It was working with light, so passing the photons, it was doing the image processing and detecting objects, so doing the object recognition. So this passive network, very cheap, 3D print, could be put anywhere. It could recognize maybe noise, it could recognize the temperature, and it doesn't need anything basically to work. Yeah? So imagine all the possibilities which business can drive from these edge use cases. You just need to think about it differently. And talking about thinking about it differently, I wanted to give you a few examples of the recent research which could be taken into business and maybe change your business a bit. So researchers at the Copenhagen University recently developed a neural network, which was able to interpret the sounds of the pigs in the barn. So you might know whether your pigs are hungry, whether they're unhappy, whether they're thirsty. On one side, of course, it helps farmers to keep their animals happy and grow them in the best way, but it also helps farmer to tell the consumer that they are actually compliant, the animal regulation, and that they are animals. Finally, when you buy your pork in the shop, you know that the animal was treated humanely. The same technology can be also deployed for the humans. So there is a startup which is called Sound Dream, which is based in Switzerland and in Spain, which is going to interpret with the same technology the sounds of the newborn babies. So when you're a new parent and you never had a child before and you're probably alone, you know that it's not easy to understand whether your newborn is crying because he's cold, he's hot, whether he wants to eat, whether he needs to be changed. But this startup is trying to actually interpret the sounds of the baby so that parents know what actually happens to them. We are quite used to the chatbots everywhere now in the world. We are also starting to learn about the human avatars, the metaverse. And the company which is Entity Resonant Inc., right now has already a digital human avatar, which not only there helps you to answer the questions, but actually has an emotionally appealing avatar, which does fully completed mentoring services. So you don't need any more human mentor. There could be an avatar mentor which follows you in life and helps you, and also does your soft skill training and mental health checks. The recent research in Oxford University was more centered, for example, on the job offers, but not like we all know this, okay, matching the candidates to the job offers for the recruiters. These were the ones which wanted to do the research which was proposing to monetize their job. So you have a job offer, and the neural network was proposing what should be the competitive market salary for this job offer. So it's good for the recruiters, but it's also good for the people if they want to know what skills they need to actually get to the certain job and how much they will earn. You can easily figure out it with a neural network. And the last one, which is a bit sustainable one, we all know that right now the problem with climate is complicated for Earth, for our planet, and there is since 1950s there is a talk about algae fuel. So we'll know algae are carbon neutral if they can be used for lots of different types of fuel, including kerosene and diesel. And they never been enough productive to actually be cost efficient to produce fuel out of them. Now, there is a neural network which was developed by Texas A&M, a National Renewable Energy Laboratory in US, which actually tells the farmers indoors and outdoors at what moment to harvest their algae, so that they do not put the shade on other algae, so they basically regulate the density of the algae production, so that it can produce at the top speed of the algae. And it means that the cost of production of the fuel from this algae will be actually comparable to the cost of the ethanol produced from the corn. And you know the corn requires highly technical production of ethanol and also a lot of water to grow. So what are the potential advantages if you implement these three things to be gained for becoming AI-driven? First of all, the AI-driven businesses innovate faster and innovate at scale. They reduce simple repetitive tasks, and they also reduce human errors. We talk a lot about what errors AI can make. We're all scared of AI errors, but actually humans are not perfect either. They're doing a lot of errors themselves. And you can going to improve the customer user experience and make the better decision. So digital transformation is not enough anymore. You really need to reconsider your business and leverage all assets which you have at scale. And your strategy has to include the role of AI to increase your competitiveness. You also need to teach humans to work alongside AI. And these humans who will work alongside the AI, they will actually change the culture of your organization. It will enable your organization to become a learning organization. And also use open source to reduce your barriers to entrance. Contribute to open source, give back to the community, develop in-house what you can to reduce your entry barrier, build a talent ecosystem to access the outside skills, and remember to consider ethics and climate impact of what you are doing in your work. And just finally, that it's not only accuracy of your neural network which matters anymore, it's really beyond. With 5, 6, 7G, your AI model, it's not anymore only a model and a data, it's really a communicating infrastructure and communicating network. So you really need to think about speed and scalability of what you are doing, because it's becoming really important. So in conclusion, capital concentration, wide technology deployment, boom in industrial AI research, and growth in the legislative activity around AI, and especially around ethical AI, signal the real fundamental trend in business right now. AI is central to the development of our society, and it is an industrial revolution, whether we want it or not, and it depends on you and depends on us whether it's actually going to be okay and whether the AI is going to grow sustainably. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Olena Kushakovska. Merci, Madame Manager Générale de SAP Labs France. Merci beaucoup. On peut vous applaudir. Merci. C'était une nouvelle fois très très intéressant. Merci beaucoup.